Hi, I was thinking the other day that years ago my brother for Christmas bought me a thesaurus, and at the time it was one of those presents that you kind of think, thanks. Um, Presuming it will be put on the bookshelf and probably never ever seen again, but this is probably 30 years ago now, and I still have it sat on my desk, and it's still the book that I can like starting to fall apart, but it's still a book that I use. And I think sometimes those presents that we kind of like think, great. And at the time, it doesn't really kind of like light us up, are often those that in the long run prove to be the most, the ones I treasure the most. And that sounds like a really awful plug, but I've just been putting this together and I think it could be another of those ones which you can like think, thanks. But actually, I hope it will be really useful. It's a 6-month planner for preparing for the GCSEs. And what I've done is I've put a space at the beginning. This one's just a draft copy, but there's a space at the beginning where it tells us about how we learn. It just breaks it down briefly how we learn. And then it gives some suggestions on how to revise. And it points out the fact that revision is actually something that's really personal to each and every one of us. It's not something that we can say, this is how you do it, because it's going to be different for each person. For some people, they may want to be sat quietly at a desk, um, head down, working through worksheets, scanning the notes they've made at school with a highlighter and everything else. For the next person, they may prefer to be laid out in the middle of the bedroom floor with the radio or the TV on and or watching YouTube clips. And from an outside perspective, you kind of think, well, how on earth are you learning like that? But for that person, that's what works. That's what's going to get them through. And it talks about the fact that so there are going to be days when you really just can't be bothered. And so on those days, um, instead of creating yourself this huge timetable which you know you just can't stick to but you feel you ought to, just go and say, okay, well, small steps are better than no steps. So if today I just do 5 minutes, that's better than nothing. That's 5 minutes more than I probably would have wanted to do. But very often once you've got started, you then keep going. So just commit to 2 or 3 minutes and see what happens. If at the end of the 2 or 3, 4, 5 minutes you're kind of thinking, okay, I really can't be bothered, then that's fine. Just leave it there. But just do 1 or 2 minutes and take it from there. Um, the other there's also a section in here about why, and it's about thinking about why you want to pass your exams. It could be for some people just so that they never need to do their maths or English again. You can put it behind yourself and think that's it, done, finished. And that's the goal. I just never ever want to have to do another maths lesson, English lesson. For others, it could be because I want to do this subject at A level, or I want to study this at degree level, or one day I want to become whatever. And in order to achieve that, I need to have accomplished this degree, which means I need to achieve these A levels, which means I need to have done well at these GCSEs. So again, our goals are going to be completely unique for each and every one of us. But if you know why you're doing it, those days that you really can't be bothered, just remind yourself that this is why you're doing it. It's so that you never need to do it again. In 6 months' time, you'll hopefully pass your maths and then it's done, finished. Or remind yourself that it's because in 5 years' time, your goal is to be heading, or however many years' time, your goal is to be heading off to university, to be heading to do your A levels, to be going into this job. And in order to do that, this is what I need to do today in order to achieve it. So that's the section on why. And there's a small short bit there to fill in kind of like what your why looks for you. And then there's 10 kind of like revision sections. And there's things in there like work through past papers, read the mark schemes, which I would say is kind of like really important. Watch YouTube clips on specific aspects that you're learning about, treat them like a walk and talk mock. Use at least 5 colors when you're making notes and revising, because goes back to the idea of stimulating more areas in the brain, making it easier to recall the information when needed. Don't try and sit and study for a long period. You won't take it in. Set a timer for 30, 45 minutes and then have a 10-minute break. And then it talks about if you're struggling to get started, commit to just 5 minutes. And there's 10 points like this. And then it talks about where you're going to revise and what you're going to revise. So kind of like plan out in advance what you're actually going to do. And also each week, maybe each day, choose a focus. So for example, today I'm going to focus on English language, my particular focus, and then I may decide to kind of like focus in a bit more and say, actually, it's question 3 on the English language paper, which really throws me. So today that's going to be my focus. I'm going to look at a couple of past papers. I'll look at the mark scheme and I'll have a go at writing one myself. And so that's my goal for today. But if you try and focus on every subject, every question, every aspect of every subject, you're just going to overload yourself and you're just not going to get through it. So focus in, whether you decide to focus per day, per week. If it's the weekend, you may kind of say, okay, well, Saturday morning, I'm going to focus on English. In the afternoon, I'm going to focus on maths. However you decide to do it, just focus in. And then there's a gap for that as well. And it's also kind of, it says your confidence level, 1 being your lowest, 10 being the highest, because what you don't want to do is always focus on the things that you're really, really poor at, because you'll just lose confidence in yourself. I know as you see an improvement, you're kind of like that will kind of like motivate you to keep going. But for a lot of people, if you just always focus on your weakest subject, you forget that you're actually good at some of the others. Whereas if you kind of like mix it up a bit, so kind of like this morning, I really hate, I don't know, French. So this morning I'm going to focus on French and get that over and done with. But actually, I love English. And so this afternoon, I'm going to spend some time doing English because that's a subject I'm stronger at. And although I'm perhaps working at a level 7, why don't I try and work at an 8 or a 9 or whatever it is? And write down in the next gap what your initial focus is and why that's your focus. And then that way, you'll stop yourself from always kind of like going, well, actually, I'm just always working on my level 10s because they're my strongest and I enjoyed being reminded that actually I'm really good at that. And so that way you'll see your focus, and it will also remind you that kind of like I'm going to focus on my French speaking because that's my weakest point, or I'm going to focus on that because that's my first exam. I'm going to focus on that because it's something we've been working on in class and I didn't understand it. I'm going to work on that because, and so know why you're focusing on it, because very often once you've got a reason why, it becomes easier to actually get down and do it. And then there kind of goes over, what does it go over? Kind of like how to use the planners, and then you've got the actual planner. So you've got a gap for each day, and then you can just pop in there. What I'd probably do is kind of like color code it. And so say this was going to be Sunday morning, I'm going to focus on English. So every time I'm focusing on English, I'll perhaps color code it in yellow. Every time or what I might actually do is put, say, English and highlight it in yellow at the top. And then in the boxes, all I'd need to do is kind of like write language paper question 3 or paper 2 question 3. I wouldn't need to write out English language paper. It's not saving many words, but it's saving some. Maths, perhaps in blue, paper 2, or I don't know, surds or whatever it is that you're revising. You probably wouldn't want to fill in all those squares because you'd be taking on too much, but there's the space for you to do. Or what you may do is kind of like your school sessions, and then your revision timetable on the end. So how you choose to fill it in is completely up to you, because like I say, revision for each and every person is completely unique. And then just before you get to the exam, there's some just before you get to the end, there's some tips on actually sitting the exam. Things like making sure you've got everything that you need, have something to eat before you go in. Bananas are a good source as they release energy slowly rather than something sugary. that will give you a quick burst of energy, but then leave you feeling flat. Make sure you go to the loo before you start so that you not distracted halfway through. Make sure in maths that you show you're working. Don't try to memorize long extracts for English lit. Instead, try and keep them short and snappy and use ones which you can cross-reference. Again, there's 10 different pointers there for things to do at exam time. And then at the end, there's some lined paper. It's not actually available yet on Amazon, but hopefully in the next week or so it will be. Just waiting for it to be accepted and go live. But yeah, just a suggestion as an idea that you might find helpful. Anyway, I'll stop talking now. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.